be a part, not wanting to give of ourselves, of our talents. That's unnatural. That's anti-instinctual. When you're really tapped in from birth to the way that it should be, as opposed to, superimpose the way it is, and then the way it should be. Really, if God's will was being done from birth, if our paradigm was established from birth, our quote reality was being established at birth. So, these are important issues because this is, part and parcel of having wisdom. Because although we learn, I'm learning stuff every single day. I learn plenty of stuff. It's amazing. Yet I do say that I have at least a modicum of wisdom that is, set in stone. As for me, it's more valuable than my life, my beliefs, like it is for all of us. Our beliefs, we've got to understand what beliefs are. Beliefs are super powerful. Beliefs are what control everything you think, everything you say, and everything you do. Essentially, your beliefs, the beliefs you withhold, are your fruits, the fruits of the Spirit. This is what you've come to at this point in your life. This is what you believe. And so you will stick by your beliefs. You will do anything. You will fight and die and kill for your beliefs. Essentially, your beliefs are who you are. It's what makes you who you are. I remember I stumbled upon this so long ago, this idea of, questioning, who am I? What makes me who I am? It's such an existential question and so philosophical and cosmic, whatever you want to call it. It happened one time. I was with another friend from Santa Cruz. I think I was 17 years old. And I had another friend that was in Hawaii on Maui, and he hooked up with a gal there that had a little camper, and they were tripping around Maui and hanging out. And Jeff, he invited us over to, Dan and I, he invited us over to hang out and surf. We were all surfers, and so it just sounded fabulous. We couldn't resist. So however we borrowed the money, begged, borrowed, or whatever, worked for it. And I remember, wash dishes. I was probably washing dishes on the wharf at that time after my job at the industrial laundromat when I was 15 and 16 to buy my first car after I moved back from Connecticut. I was only in Connecticut for probably not even half a year. It's such a long, drawn-out story, but I ended up there. I was sailing with my dad at the time. I was in Costa Rica on a boat he had built in Santa Cruz in the town of Felton. This is 1973, and we weren't getting along too good. I was going through puberty and all that. I was kind of mad at him for divorcing my mom, and my mom ended up in Norwich, Connecticut, because my dad's sister lived there. She was having a hard time letting go and all that, understandably, how these things can be for people. But anyhow, we weren't getting along, and he flew me to Connecticut to stay with my mom and my two sisters, and they live in an apartment. So I worked on the dairy farm there in Fitchville, outside of west of Norwich. But anyhow, I worked off and on in Santa Cruz doing different stuff. I worked at this industrial laundromat I might have mentioned. Supposed to be a union job. My boss used to sit on the clean laundry in these big bags and smoking a cigar with a stopwatch, making sure I'm going fast enough while I'm dumping these gigantic bins of laundry and, bar mop from the restaurants. It stunk to high heaven, just grease. And magnets were in there. It was so hot it nearly burned your hands, nearly raised blisters. So hot near the bottom, especially steaming and just awful putrid stuff. Hospital sheets with blood and sometimes guts. That's what I did when I was 15 to earn enough money to buy my first car. But after that, I didn't stay there too long. I ended up washing dishes in a couple of different places. Carnelia's on the wharf in Santa Cruz and Stagnero's and anyhow, going to school and surfing, but by the time I was 18, my dad helped my sisters and I start a health food store, so I kept going to school. I had to make up for a year, so I kept going to college in Santa Cruz, Cabrillo College, to finish up and get my high school diploma. But anyhow, I know I digressed and gave a story that nobody's probably interested in anyhow, but I've never been afraid to work. I like it. I mean, especially young people. You see how energetic they are. I mean, it's so easy. They're just, practically floating around doing what they do. They go hiking and, this and that form of recreation. And at work, they're so energetic and smiling at the end of the day. You get older and, those things change. You realize that, you really are needy. You're dependent upon the young generation to take care of you to some degree. And thank God that they have that strength and that vigor and that wherewithal to do that. This is the whole idea behind this Social Security. Now, I'm not necessarily for any welfare programs, but, you know, um, anyhow, before I get off onto something else here, I finished the story about going to Hawaii, but yeah, it was just a great time. I think we were there for a week, Dan and I and Jeff and his girlfriend. What was her name? Can't remember right now. But anyhow, we hung out and we went to this little town on Maui, on the island of Maui called Hana. And we were wandering around and we found these mushrooms and these little piles of cow droppings. And we were told that these were edible and that they were good and all that. And so we had our fill of those things. But that was around the time I remember that I sat in Jeff's girlfriend's camper, and I was thinking to myself, what makes me who I am? I thought of all my life experiences. I have traveled so much. My dad is very adventurous. I've lived in Florida when I was a child. I lived in Manhattan Beach. I lived in Ireland. I lived in England. I lived on Malta, of all things. Pretty much an Arabic nation there, but pretty secular, I would say, all things considered, with what I see in that region. But, I've had a very adventurous life. My dad was kind of one of these extra special guys, and he built sailboats. I mean, the last sailboat that he built, the one that I was on down in Costa Rica, was a 48-foot trimaran, with a beautiful teak wheelhouse and 6 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms. He was quite a guy. He did stuff that most guys dare not even dream of. He accomplished in his life. And of all the things he did, he liked to think of himself most of all as a poet. And he was a very great poet, a very great speaker. And, I miss him a lot because he passed a couple of years ago in just about a week now on the 5th of August, 2014. But I'm digressing again. But anyhow, that's that story that in Hawaii, what happened there. And it was a great, great time I had with my friends. And but, it changed me. Philosophically, it made me, feel like, wow, I was questioning my very essence. I thought, what am I living vicariously through my dad? I mean, I'm not my dad. I'm just, for all I know, we're not even biologically related. Nobody ever did a DNA test, so whoever knows, Only the mother really knows in these cases, but nobody really cares. It's just like my beautiful daughters. For all I know, we've never had a DNA test. Maybe they're not mine. Maybe my wife was fooling around. Who knows? My love for them would be the same. So, enough said about that. But anyhow, about welfare, though, and what's going on in our system, understand who created the need for the welfare system. Understand that if the problems ever went away through prosperity, gradual prosperity, painless, even for the status quo prosperity, through sound money, it would happen gradually, and nobody would feel it. People will still work. They will still serve you. Everybody, no matter if you are born rich, everybody will serve. Everybody wants to chip in. The job is going to get done. I mean, when I think about what the things I have in terms of material possessions, I think, I wouldn't have any of it if it was just me. I wouldn't have any of it. I mean, when I was going to cut some guy's grass, if I couldn't fashion some kind of scythe, from pounding out a piece of metal I found somewhere, you know what I mean? It's like without other people, none of us would have anything. So there's no room for self-pride, false pride, self-righteousness, ego, vanity, arrogance, all these things. No, we've got to say, that's not me. That's the accuser coming in, trying to make me believe I'm somebody I'm not. And we've got to decide to say, no, God says you're beloved. His grace is sufficient for me. He loves me. He forgives me. He understands my weaknesses. He created me that way, and you and all of us as a fail-safe. So at the end of the day, we always turn to Him. He made us very needy. Notice how we need to drink. We need to breathe. We need water. We need food. We need love. And He's the only one that can supply those kind of needs. The really powerful love that we need can only come from above. It's the kind of love where I don't care how good a parent you are and how you genuinely, sincerely love your kids. You would die for you would hang on a cross for your kids. I get that. God gets that. But we've got to understand that there's only one that can understand us individually, personally, and love us the way we need that love. We need a profound love, a very deep love, an unconditional love, that agape love. That's the term I was looking for, agape love, which is such a pure love. It's like no matter what you could ever do, if you turn back to me, I will love you. But you don't want to do anything bad because you love him. You see what I mean? And that's how he wants our love. He wants it of our own free will and accord. He doesn't want us to love him, like the people of this world tell you, serve your master, serve your boss because you need him, and you love him because he fulfills your needs. He gives you a paycheck and you need that paycheck, and you love your boss so much because he's fulfilling your needs. He's like God to you, to me, to all of us. We get that, and God gets that. But at the end of the day, we have no business holding anybody up to that kind of esteem, right? To that, on that kind of pedestal, except the one and only Almighty Creator God. That's our Father. That's our parents. That's male and female, created in the image and likeness of God. His air is very smoky, as you can see. A lot of fires burning here and there. And you know how it is, not enough breeze blowing, but boy, I can tell. But anyhow, that love is so important that we know it's there. And, when I think of all the people out there that are going to, kill themselves, and I think each one of us has an opportunity. If you say, well, there's no way, I know I would never do that because I don't believe in death. It's as simple as that, back to beliefs. What we believe in. We can say something exists, we believe death exists, but it's also a subjective term. Like Jesus, he said it's sleep. It's like the big sleep. So understanding that you can't really die because God does not give a good thing like life, especially human life, and then let you take it away at your own hand. You don't have that power to take your own life. So it's futile. We need not engage in it because he's going to love us even after death. And he's going to resurrect us, all of us. And so, don't believe the accuser that's telling you this stuff, that you're useless, you're just another warm body. That's the spirit of the world, you see. That's this whole, global climate change thing that they're tapped into. It's social Darwinianism. That's what it is. It's this whole idea that, the Earth's overpopulated, a lot of you got to die, the resources are getting used up, so just be pragmatic, be logical. And kill yourself. Do the earth a favor. This is what God wants you to do because God created the earth and he wants to preserve the earth and all this rubbish. Well, these guys, of course, are huge hypocrites, suppressing the clean energy technology, the carbon footprint of 10,000 men. So you can't believe these guys. I mean, please, for heaven's sake, believe somebody at least has, a modicum of logic to their rhetoric and says, hey, you know what? We don't need to mess the earth up to live on it. And when you really consider it, the earth is very sparsely populated. We could fit the entire Earth's population in the city of Jacksonville, Florida, I believe it is. And, the rest could be preserved for agriculture if need be. And we could increase the amount of fish in the ocean easily by not allowing the acidification, these toxic chemicals, this runoff, toxic fertilizers to go in there. And we could create artificial reefs. And we could have dramatically more fish out in the ocean. See, they don't want the problem solved. That's what we got to understand. Again, I'm not going to go into the spiel. It's the top evildoers. These are the ones that are connected at the hip with Satan and the spirit thereof, okay? And if any problems start getting solved and humanity gets a taste of how good it feels to see your currency go up in worth in the aggregate, because your currency has gone up dramatically relative to certain commodities like the VCR, one of my favorite examples. So ask yourself, why hasn't that happened with housing? If it did, we could all own 5 or 10 houses. Do you understand? They don't want you to think and figure this stuff out for yourselves, but I've stumbled upon it. True capitalism is supply and demand capitalism. And what happens naturally, okay, just naturally, it's just an automatic thing. There's no forcing it. Your currency goes up in worth in the aggregate. You might have slight setbacks to where some particular commodity got more dear, and then humanity rallied around and we made sure we had plenty of that. If there's a drought in one part of the planet, well, where there's no drought, we grow extra food to provide for those of the other part of the planet. You understand? It works like that. So we see each other as a civilization, one family, one race, and we care about each other just like we care about ourselves. The way that God puts on our hearts, if we listen to our true instincts, to do with each other, to really try to reflect His glory and goodness, and to give it to others. And this is where we will get our greatest reward. The happiness is given from